Did you know that for 40 years, millions of families lined up to irradiate their children's feet? From the 1920s to the 60s, thousands of shoe stores had X-ray machines called photoscopes. Parents thought they were being scientific, getting the perfect shoe fit for their kids. What they didn't know was horrifying. These machines blasted radiation levels over 100 times stronger than chest X-rays, straight through children's developing bones. Sales clerks developed radiation burns on their hands from operating them daily. Their skin would blister and peel. Kids got multiple exposures during family shopping trips. Some stores let children play with the glowing green images of their own skeletons. The manufacturers knew the dangers by the 1950s. Internal documents showed they understood the cancer risks, but they kept selling them anyway, marketing them as advanced technology. Store workers started getting sick. Customers developed cancers years later. The machines weren't banned until the 1970s. By then, an entire generation had been unknowingly poisoned, all for the perfect shoe fit. The radiation is still killing people today. In 1972, 45 people boarded a plane to Chile. Only 16 would make it home alive. The Uruguayan rugby team's flight crashed high in the Andes Mountains. The impact killed 29 instantly. The survivors waited for rescue, but after 10 days, they heard devastating news on a radio. The search had been called off. They were declared dead. With no food left and temperatures dropping to minus 20 degrees, they faced an impossible choice. They began eating the bodies of their dead teammates. For 72 days, they survived on human flesh, friends eating friends, teammates consuming teammates. An avalanche buried 8 more survivors alive. The psychological horror was unbearable. Some couldn't do it. They died. Finally, 2 survivors hiked for 10 days through impossible terrain. They found help. When the world learned how they survived, it sparked a global debate about morality versus survival. 16 people walked out of those mountains, but they left their humanity behind. Sometimes survival demands the unthinkable.
Did you know that one man survived poison, gunshots, and beatings, only to finally die by drowning? In December 1916, Russian nobles decided to kill Grigory Rasputin, the mysterious monk who had too much power over the royal family. They thought killing him would save Russia. Prince Yusupov invited Rasputin to his palace and served him cakes and wine filled with enough cyanide to kill 10 men. Rasputin ate everything and kept asking for more, completely unaffected. Panicking, the prince shot him in the chest. Rasputin collapsed, but then suddenly stood up and tried to escape into the courtyard. The nobles shot him 3 more times and beat him with clubs until he stopped moving. They wrapped his body in a carpet and threw him through the ice into the freezing Neva River. But here's the shocking part. The autopsy revealed water in Rasputin's lungs. This meant the so-called mad monk was still alive when they dumped him in the river. After surviving poison, 4 gunshots, and a brutal beating, Rasputin finally died by drowning in the icy waters. Did you know that one building's destruction set back human progress by over 1,000 years? The Great Library of Alexandria held 700,000 scrolls containing the greatest knowledge of the ancient world, and we lost almost all of it. This wasn't just any library, it contained complete works of mathematicians and astronomers whose discoveries wouldn't be matched for centuries, medical texts with surgical techniques that disappeared until the Renaissance, detailed maps of lands we can barely identify today. Most shocking of all, Aristarchus had already proven that Earth orbits the Sun 1,500 years before Copernicus got credit for it. The library died 3 times. First, Caesar accidentally burned part of it in 40 BC during a naval battle. Then Christian mobs destroyed more in 391 AD, viewing it as pagan knowledge. Finally, the Arab conquest in 641 AD finished what remained. We lost complete historical records of entire civilizations, advanced mathematics, revolutionary astronomy, life-saving medicine. Imagine where humanity might be today if that knowledge had survived. One library contained the keys to accelerating human progress by centuries. Did you know the real Dracula was far more terrifying than any vampire movie? Meet Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia. In 1462, he created something that horrified even battle-hardened Ottoman soldiers. Vlad's weapon of choice wasn't fangs or blood, it was wooden stakes. He would impale his victims, leaving them to die slowly over days. The screams could be heard for miles. But his masterpiece of terror came when the Ottoman Empire invaded. Vlad impaled 20,000 Turkish soldiers and displayed their corpses outside his capital city. This became known as the Forest of the Impaled. Picture this. Rows upon rows of rotting bodies on stakes, stretching as far as the eye could see. The smell was so overwhelming that Ottoman forces retreated in horror. During his 6-year reign, Vlad impaled an estimated 80,000 people. His psychological warfare was so effective that enemies fled at the mere mention of his name. This real-life monster became the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. 500 years later, we're still telling his story. Sometimes reality is far scarier than fiction. Did you know a 17-year-old peasant girl convinced the King of France she could talk to saints? In 1428, Joan of Arc claimed 3 saints appeared to her in her father's garden. St. Michael, St. Margaret, and St. Catherine told her to save France from the English invaders. But what really happened to Joan that day? Modern doctors think she might have had temporal lobe epilepsy. This brain condition can cause people to hear voices and see things that aren't there. Others believe powerful French nobles used Joan as a puppet, training her to say exactly what the desperate king wanted to hear. The most shocking part? It worked. Joan's mysterious voices gave her knowledge about military secrets and court politics that a farm girl should never have known. She predicted specific battles and knew details about the royal family, whether divine miracle, medical condition, or a political conspiracy. Joan's voices changed history forever. She convinced the French court to give her an army. That army drove the English out of France and crowned a new king. Sometimes the greatest mysteries created the most powerful legends. Did you know that one single battle almost changed the entire world as we know it? Picture this. October 1781. British General Cornwallis breaks through the siege at Yorktown. American and French forces scatter in panic. Washington's Continental Army crumbles overnight. The ripple effects are massive. Colonial morale shatters completely. France pulls out of the war, keeping their money instead of going broke. Without that financial strain, the French Revolution never happens. King Louis stays on his throne. America remains British. No independence, no constitution. The idea of ordinary people governing themselves dies before it can spread. Britain controls all of North America. There's no Louisiana Purchase because there's no United States to buy it. Democracy movements across Europe never get inspired by American success. The Industrial Revolution stays centered in Britain longer. Republican government, the radical idea that people can rule without kings, never proves itself. Imagine a world where monarchy remained the only way to govern, where the spark of democracy never lit the flame that would eventually burn across continents. One battle, one different outcome. Everything changes. Did you know that in 4,000 years of Chinese history, only one woman ever became emperor? Her name was Wu Zetian, and her path to power was soaked in blood. Starting as a low-ranking concubine in the Tang Dynasty court, Wu used shocking tactics to climb to the top. When the empress stood in her way, Wu allegedly strangled her own newborn daughter and blamed the empress for the murder. But that was just the beginning. Wu created a secret police network that turned neighbors into spies. She ordered the execution of her own son when he threatened her rule. Anyone who opposed her simply disappeared. For 15 brutal years, Wu ruled with an iron fist. Historians estimate she ordered the deaths of 40,000 people, nobles, generals, and even family members who dared challenge her authority. Her methods were ruthless, but they worked. Wu transformed China's government and expanded the empire's borders. When she died, China's imperial system returned to male-only rule, a tradition that lasted another 1,000 years until the empire itself fell. Did you know that one moment of rage destroyed a dynasty that had ruled Russia for 700 years? In 1581, Tsar Ivan IV was already known as Ivan the Terrible. His violent temper had earned him that name through years of brutal rule. But nothing prepared Russia for what happened on November 16th. Ivan was arguing with his son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich, in the royal palace. The fight grew heated. Some say it was about the prince's wife. Others claim it was about military strategy. Suddenly, the Tsar's famous rage exploded. He grabbed his iron-pointed staff and struck his son in the head with devastating force. The prince collapsed, blood pouring from his skull. Ivan the Terrible immediately realized what he had done. He cradled his dying son, begging for forgiveness, but it was too late. 3 days later, the heir to Russia's throne was dead. With this single blow, Ivan had killed not just his son, but the entire Rurik dynasty. Russia plunged into chaos called the Time of Troubles that lasted for decades. One moment of anger, 7 centuries of rule, gone. Did you know that 3 farmers digging for water accidentally discovered one of history's greatest treasures? It was 1974 in China. Yang Zhifa and his friends were desperately digging a well during a terrible drought. Their shovels hit something hard. They thought it was just rocks. But when they looked closer, they saw a face staring back at them. A clay face. Then another, and another. They had stumbled upon over 8,000 life-size terracotta warriors buried for 2,200 years. These weren't just random statues. They were the obsession of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. This ruler was terrified of death and desperately wanted to live forever. When he realized he couldn't achieve immortality, he decided to build an entire underground army to protect him in the afterlife. Each warrior was unique, with different faces, armor, and weapons. Thousands of craftsmen spent decades creating this massive burial complex. This accidental discovery completely changed what we knew about ancient China's power and sophistication. Sometimes the most incredible historical finds happen when people are just looking for water. Did you know that one of history's most powerful emperors drowned in 3 feet of water and changed the world forever? In 1190, Frederick Barbarossa was unstoppable. The 68-year-old Holy Roman Emperor led 100,000 crusaders toward Jerusalem. He had crushed 2 Byzantine armies and negotiated safe passage through enemy lands. Victory seemed certain. Then came the Salif River in Turkey, barely 3 feet deep, a simple crossing for such a mighty force. But something went terribly wrong. Barbarossa either suffered a heart attack or his horse stumbled. Wearing full armor, the emperor who had conquered nations couldn't save himself from shallow water. His death was instant catastrophe. The largest crusader army in history fell apart overnight. German nobles abandoned the Holy War and raced home to grab land during the power struggle. Without Barbarossa's massive army, Richard the Lionheart and Philip Augustus couldn't take Jerusalem. The Third Crusade failed completely. Saladin kept the Holy Land. One stumble in shallow water changed 800 years of history. Sometimes the smallest moments have the biggest consequences.